Story 1. I simply do not like it. Can be fun with friends, but otherwise it just makes me tired and is not a great time. If you love the feeling, it is a slippery slope. Story 2. I do not really like being drunk. I definitely do not like being hungover. It makes it easy. Story 3. If you are an alcoholic, it will never happen. Speaking from personal experience, just quit while you are ahead. Story 4. I remember that I am going to feel terrible the next day if I drink, and having work the next day is usually enough of a deterrent. Story 5. I do not like alcohol that much. In general, I nurse my drinks, so I have to make a conscious effort to drink more. Story 6. I treat it as a special occasion. For example, I love cake, but I do not eat it every day because it is not healthy. The same applies to alcohol. Story 7. I don't like the taste of alcohol. Occasionally I see a cocktail on a menu that sounds tasty and order it, but I usually can't finish it because it's too strong. This happens maybe 4 or 5 times a year, usually on work trips when all my other coworkers are drinking. Most of the time I don't even think about drinking. It's not on my mind. Story 8. It is probably something in our deoxyribonucleic acid. I can drink occasionally. I do not crave alcohol and I do not particularly enjoy being drunk. My wife mostly avoids alcohol because it runs in her family. She has not struggled with it personally, but she feels a draw to it and has watched her brother and father go through alcohol-related problems. Story 9. After watching half of my family die from complications of alcoholism, I am so paranoid about developing an addiction that I have to take a week or 2 off whenever I notice I've been drinking, even a little, for a few nights in a row. Is it rational? No. Does it help me sleep at night? Fuck yes. Story 10. Hello, original poster. I am a 49-year-old married father of 2 in the United Kingdom. I have been sober for 2 years after 30 years of heavy drinking. I think the reason is that social drinkers have a few drinks when they are already feeling good. They use alcohol to enhance the positive feelings they already have. I used alcohol to try to get to feeling good. For 30 years, I tried to drink myself happy. Combined with a brain that believed 1 drink made me feel this good, so 20 drinks would make me feel 20 times as good. You can imagine how well that went. I am not a doctor or psychologist, but I have done a lot of introspection since achieving sobriety in October 2023. All the very best to you, original poster. Story 11. As a 35-year-old man who might drink once or twice each year, how do people drink every day? That was rhetorical. It shows how your question sounds to people who do not drink much. I am not criticizing, just pointing it out. I drank every weekend at my friend's apartment from about 19 to 23, but for more than a decade I have rarely drunk alcohol. When I do, it is 2 or 3 Captain Morgan and Cokes and I am satisfied. I do not see a need or benefit to drinking more. Story 12. I am 33 and my hangovers really make me useless the next day. I don't know. I like getting out of bed and having the energy to do things. Story 13. I turned 40, and hangovers are now multi-day affairs. I dislike hangovers more than I like drinking. Story 14. I cannot seem to find any alcohol that does not give me a headache the next day. I can have a beer if I am also eating, but that is it. While other parents drink wine and cocktails, I stick with iced tea. It is not worth the headache. Story 15. Those social drinkers you are asking about are similarly confused about why people with alcohol use disorder cannot restrain themselves. We are all wired differently. I am not a scientist, but I am not convinced these behaviors are simply learned. Many people with tendencies to overdrink can learn to restrain themselves and can overcome their wiring. I am not an alcoholic and never was, but I spent a lengthy portion of my youth overdrinking in social situations. It was a way of life for us, but it became obvious who had a penchant for consistent overconsumption. I say this with respect to the original poster. The fact that you asked this question should tell you what you need to know about yourself. You will need to be consciously diligent, but you can overcome this. Story 16, for instance, I don't want to eat pizza day in, day out. Drinking regularly becomes boring. Have you noticed that many alcoholics are rather dull? I have 2 or 3 drinks every 4 or 5 weeks and I enjoy it. Story 17. Alcohol is expensive. If the hosts are providing it, great. I will have at most 3 drinks. If the social event is bring your own beverage, I just bring a 4-pack of something. If we are meeting at a bar, drinks in my area are $17 to $20 or more, so I will usually have just one. I do not drink beer. Story 18. I usually have a few beers and a couple of cocktails once or twice a month. I can go months without alcohol or sometimes get very drunk, but I do not crave it. I usually drink only when I am with others or when something special or fun is happening, such as a Formula One race. Story 19. I enjoy a few drinks. Sometimes I want a drink or two, especially to handle a social or business situation. From Sunday through Thursday, I don't have much interest. I have no idea why. It's not that I'm more disciplined or virtuous. It's just how I'm wired. Story 20. Some people like alcohol the same way I like gambling. It depends on the person. Story 21. Not wanting to end up like my dad at his current age with hand tremors and mobility issues was what did it for me. I took more than 500 days off drinking, and that changed my attitude toward drinking at home 3 to 4 nights a week, especially given my dad's decline. Now I rarely keep alcohol in the house and only have 1 or 2 drinks on rare occasions when socializing. Story 22. I want to drink every day, but I am one of those people who has never had a hangover no matter how much I drink. I went to a bachelorette party, drank a third of a bottle of vodka by myself, and woke up the next morning before anyone else and cleaned the Airbnb. I also process alcohol quickly, which allows me to drink more than most in a given time frame. I do not suffer the usual consequences from drinking, although I still do dumb things while drunk and make a fool of myself. It is dangerous and very easy to drink too often because of that, so I do not allow myself to drink very often. I already have a caffeine and nicotine addiction. I do not need to add another thing to my list. Story 23. I don't like the way I feel the next day. Sometimes I will have a beer here and there. I enjoy wine. Some weeks I do not drink it at all. Other weeks I might get a bottle and have 1 or 2 glasses in the evening. With cannabis, I am the opposite. Once I start smoking, it is all day, every day. I cannot stop unless I take a break. Story 24. I have wondered this for a long time. I am almost a year and a half sober. In my drinking days, I would come home from work and drink until I got drunk every day. I tried going a day or 2 without it, and I never succeeded. Story 25. I used to drink a lot and drank every day. A couple of beers or a few glasses of wine. We now keep alcohol-free beers that are less than 0.5% alcohol by volume in the fridge all the time, and they are my go-to after work. They provide the same psychological effect, and most of them are really good now. I highly recommend them if you are trying to cut out some midweek units. Story 26. That sounds like being an alcoholic, not a social drinker. Story 27. Cannot stand the taste, no matter what they try to mask it with. Story 28. It just does not make me feel good after 2, maybe 3 drinks. I think I have reached an age where only a top-shelf cocktail or an aged wine is pleasant. I cannot do fruity, syrupy mixed drinks anymore like in college because they taste gross now and are like drinking pure sugar. Being buzzed or drunk is not a good feeling for me. I know others feel differently, but that has not been my experience. Story 29. I feel horrible the next day. I only like certain things, so I drink slowly to enjoy whatever I get. I usually stick to around 2, and on rare occasions in an all-afternoon or all-evening session, maybe 3 at most. Story 30. It interferes with workout gains the following day, so it is best to limit it. Lifting with a hangover is hell. Laughing out loud. Story 31. I hate how I feel when I wake up. Exercising and hydrating make me feel amazing. Alcohol makes me feel sluggish. Story 32. It doesn't do for me what it does for you. Some of that is genetic. Who knows where the rest of it comes from? Everybody is more different than you imagine. Story 33. I do not think about drinking alcohol. When I do, I come up with other things I would rather do. Story 34. As a social drinker and former smoker, I could never understand my friends who were able to smoke only socially or only when out on weekends. I understand, but as others mentioned, it is a matter of perspective for someone with an addiction. To answer your question, drinking has far more drawbacks than benefits for me. It can help loosen up and is convenient for socializing with friends who have varying availability, but it prevents me from sleeping well, leaves me feeling unwell and lethargic for 1 to 2 days afterward, and costs a lot of money. Story 35. Hangovers, a family history of alcoholism, and concern for my liver mean I have no desire to make drinking a habit. Drinking is fun, but not that fun. Story 36. I am an abnormality where this is concerned. I started drinking at 9 or 10 and actually got drunk for the first time at 8. I was drinking whiskey at 10 and used to take it and vodka to school with me in 7th grade, adding it to the pink lemonade they served. I was smoking in 5th grade, a pack a day until I was 37. I am 56 now. I was able to buy liquor at 12 because I looked older and had a beard. The drinking age was 19. I passed well enough and they did not card much. I went to bars and picked up women aged 21 to 42 when I was 16. I could drink with the best of them, but buying them weed had become my favorite daily drug. Around 23, I was drinking a 1/5 to a liter of Dickel every night in an hour or two, and then beer every night after work with some crazy coworkers. That's when I started blacking out. It was different from passing out. I would black out for hours. It felt like a switch when I hit a certain blood alcohol level. 1 minute I was very drunk, the next minute I was gone. I was never violent. I am not a violent person. My 2 best friends told me I would be having whole conversations in dancing. Once I was in a shotgun beer contest for a t-shirt from a band, and they said I drank it in 2 gulps. I have always been better than average at shotgunning and using beer bongs. I rarely got beat. I just did not remember any of it. What got to me was waking up at someone's house with my friends and not having any memory past about 1 a.m. They said I drove fine and could not believe I did not remember anything. I am in Tennessee and the roads here are all curvy, some with huge drop-offs. I could have driven into someone's living room. I could have killed my best friends or a kid and nobody could tell I was like that. So I basically quit, not completely. I put a limit and stuck mainly to beer. I acquired a few driving under the influence convictions along the way in Tennessee and Virginia. I was lucky and they did not know about them in each state until years later. I had 2 in each state. The thing was, I was never very drunk when I got them. My readings were 0.10, 0.11, 0.10, and 0.12. One was after I had 1 Long Island iced tea with no ice and was pulled over 15 minutes later. I worked second shift and would get pulled over at 2 in the morning after having 2 or 3 beers after work. I was told by the judge that 11 months and 29 days was going to be my sentence if I ever came in front of him again. That was after my 5th driving under the influence, but I was charged as a first offender because it had been 14 years since my last one. After that, I would go out to a bar and never drink more than 2. That 11 months and 29 days would ring in my ears. Serve every day of that sentence, no early release, no good time, no trustee. By then, I had a daughter whose mother ran out on us when she was 7, and she was my world. I raised her alone. Somewhere along the way, I did not quit drinking entirely. I just lost the taste for it. I still smoke weed and have a drink now and then, just 1 or 2. It just does not appeal to me. Takes too much to get me drunk now. My tolerance is stuck high and I just do not want it. I have a really bad addictive personality and very bad attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, so I do not know why, but I drink just 1 or 2 because I like the taste of good whiskey. I sip it and then go to bed. I also like lysergic acid diethylamide and mushrooms and have microdosed them a lot, which has had a lot to do with not drinking. Microdosing changed my perspective to a better one and, in my view, should be used more for treating people with alcoholism. I never thought of myself as an alcoholic. I do not care if other people do. I go to bars to see bands and friends play. I just have coffee or a Coke. I am more addicted to ice cream and cookies these days. Story 37. I drink for the taste, not the buzz. I no longer do shots. I sip cocktails, fine wines, or premium spirits. Even if I end up tipsy or drunk, the social and culinary experience comes first. Story 38. Think about a dessert you like, such as chocolate cake or an ice cream sundae. How can you not have that for every meal of the day? It is like that. Story 39. I don't like the taste of alcohol. The only thing I can really enjoy is cocktails. It's pretty easy to have only one or two if I don't like beer, and too many sweet, sugary drinks either make me feel sick or just make me feel bad about the calories. Story 41. I do not like the taste of most alcohol. Every so often I crave a margarita on a hot day or a Guinness. After one drink, most of the time I am satisfied. 2. I have a full-time job, intensive arts hobbies, and I work out. I am often tired and sometimes fall asleep in my day clothes with the lights still on after a normal day. Alcohol disrupts my sleep because I need more sleep to recover after drinking and because the quality of my sleep is worse. The only times I drink more than one drink or drink regularly are holidays or when I am on vacation. 3. There is no social pressure to drink. Almost none of my friends drink now. Some used to drink beer and go to bars more often, but they all stopped during the pandemic. 4. I am lucky. I am just like this. Alcoholism runs on both sides of my family and affected people of all education and income levels. I am not inherently smarter than any of them. I think I simply lucked out in not wanting alcohol, like people who can eat whatever they want and never gain weight. Story 41. We are not addicted to it. If you cannot have alcohol without wanting it every day, you have a problem and should not drink. Story 42. I have no desire for it to be an everyday thing. It is a special drink for me. If I had it every day, it would no longer feel special. Story 43. You need to go a sustained period of time without drinking. Then you can try social drinking. This comes from someone who used to drink all the time and then decided to quit. I stopped drinking for a few months, and now not only do I not care for it, I can enjoy a drink or two socially without a second thought about wanting more the next day. You just lose interest in it. If you are struggling with alcohol addiction, it is best to stop drinking entirely and never look back. Story 44. I am both cursed and blessed with extreme heartburn. Combined with an increased heart rate from dehydration, my body just isn't built to be a proper alcoholic. Story 45. It definitely takes self-discipline not to get carried away and become an alcoholic. Story 46. I have realized how damaging alcohol is to the body. This has caused me to develop a negative view of it, which makes me decline alcoholic drinks more easily and more often. Story 47. I am not a fan of the strange warm feeling that most alcoholic beverages give me. The increased urge to urinate every few minutes is also unpleasant. When I do drink, I limit myself to 2 and call it a night. Seeing some members of my extended family abuse alcohol strongly influences my decision to avoid drinking often. Story 48. Easy. I do not like the taste or effects of alcohol, so I do not drink unless it is the social norm. I will choose whatever does not taste awful. Being broke does not hurt either. Alcohol is expensive. Story 49. I have a cocktail about once a week. I work some night shifts. If I am home, half the time I have a beer. I have about 5 drinks a week. Story 50. The same way I have a hot dog or pizza now and then without eating it every day, alcohol is just a drink I enjoy. If I had it too often, I would grow tired of it. I drink to enjoy the flavor, not to experience the effects of a weak poison. I do not enjoy the effects. I dislike being uncoordinated or slurring my words. I have to be fairly wound up for alcohol to help me relax, and that does not happen often. I do not drink beer because I dislike its taste, and I do not drink many wines because I do not like their flavor. I prefer mixed drinks because I enjoy how the spirits pair with mixers, and I like my drinks weak. For example, I use 1.5 ounces of rum with 12 ounces of cola rather than the more common 3 to 4 ounces of rum when I have a rum and cola. Story 51. I enjoy drinking socially and at home with my wife while we watch something ridiculous and laugh. I travel and attend many business dinners. As much as I enjoy it, I dislike hangovers, so I drink smart when I do, though most of the time I can do without alcohol. I do not need alcohol to have a good time, loosen up, or come up with a response or joke. It never became a habit, so I can have a drink when I want it and skip it when I do not, without craving it. If I have a drink, it is a conscious decision. I consider how I will get home to determine how much to limit myself, how much water to drink, and when to stop. Story 52. I always thought about this too. I had problems with alcohol, or rather with strong, straight drinks. Cocktails, on the other hand, were a completely different story. I was surprised how you couldn't even taste the alcohol in some cocktails. I never became addicted to alcohol, but I have had and still have a hard time quitting weed. Story 53. I like to drink. Once I get started, I usually have a few. On weekdays, I do not have a strong desire to drink. Even when I am in the mood, I do not drink unless it is a special occasion. Comes down to discipline. If you cannot control it, you should remove it from your life. Story 54. I work in the liquor industry and attend social drinking events a lot. I have more free alcohol at home than most fully stocked bars, but unless I am hosting, I rarely drink at home. Maybe 2 drinks a year by myself. I love alcohol and can talk about it all day. I am a certified Cicerone, certified at level 2 by the Wine and Spirit Education Trust, and a level 2 sommelier. Maybe because it feels about 85% like work, I honestly do not want to go drinking in my free time. Story 55. I am being treated for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and a mild mood disorder. My medications give my brain the dopamine it craves. I am by no means an alcoholic. I can go months without a drink. A while back, I began trying different bourbons and old-fashioned style drinks. I would have 1 or 2 on Friday or Saturday. Once I started medication for my mood, I had no interest in drinking. I would mix a drink and discard most of it. I think brain chemistry has something to do with wanting to chase it day after day. Then the brain changes associated with alcohol addiction can take over, and a person drinks to avoid withdrawal. Story 56. If you're not an alcoholic, you feel satisfied after 1 or 2 drinks. That's my experience. I have no desire for more alcohol. I was addicted to marijuana in high school. I always wanted more, and my life centered on getting stoned all day. Story 57. I wish they made half-size beers in cans. I have to put effort into finishing an entire beer. I like beer and the light buzz it gives me, but I have trouble drinking when it is just my wife and me. At a wedding, though, I can easily be the first to get drunk. I enjoy getting drunk. It is a lot of fun, but when I am alone, I do not see the point. Story 58. I don't like the feeling of being intoxicated in any form. Alcohol is especially bad because it makes me extra angry and I hate feeling that way. Story 59. It is probably just biological. I like alcohol, but I do not like the way it makes me feel. After drinking, I usually feel warm inside and need to use the restroom. I also do not like that my reaction time is impaired while playing on the computer. Story 60. It makes me feel crappy and groggy the next day, so I save it for Friday night with friends or for 2 glasses of wine at a Saturday lunch. Story 61. I just don't love how it makes me feel. I'm more of a cannabis person and I could take an edible every day, but I limit myself to about 3 times a week or fewer. I figure relying on it to relax isn't good for my mental health or my wallet. Story 62. I enjoy a decent drink paired with a good meal, but that does not happen often. Otherwise, I cannot be bothered except for special occasions. Story 63. I like alcohol, but I can definitely feel it the next day. I do not want to feel like that every day, so I usually avoid drinking from Monday through Wednesday. Story 64. I do not want to go out and be social every day, let alone drink. Story 65. Having seen what alcohol addiction in my family can do to people, I have always been very conscious about my drinking. When I was younger, the worst it got for me was binge drinking at parties, maybe twice a month. I would get completely wasted and regret the hangover for a couple of days. Now I am almost 30 and those days are behind me. I can still have a few drinks with friends, but luckily many of my friends today are not drinkers at all. If I am feeling particularly stressed or depressed, I might have 1 beer at the end of the day and savor it, no more than twice a week. Everyone has particular vices they struggle with. Alcohol and cannabis are things I use in moderation. Overeating is extremely difficult for me to manage. I have consistently gained weight as I have aged, and I find that I cope with stress and depression primarily with food. Even when I exercise regularly, I tend to eat more and keep the weight on. If it is not alcohol, we are all struggling with something. Story 66. I hate the way I feel when it starts to wear off while I am trying to sleep and for the entire next day. I hate what it does to my waistline and that I cannot be a present parent when I am not sober. I reserve drinking for our weekly date night when the kids spend the night at their grandmother's house and I can sleep in the next day, or for very infrequent outings with friends when social lubrication helps me overcome my introversion and the poor night's sleep is worth the memories. Story 67. I have 1 or 2 beers 4 or 5 times a week. Generally, I have one before dinner and one with dinner. I enjoy a good beer as I would a cola or a glass of lemonade on a hot day. For me, a beer is just a beverage option. If I am out to dinner and all they have are light or mass market beers, I will pass and have a soft drink or coffee. I do not have to decide to abstain. I decide whether to choose a beer over another perfectly acceptable beverage. Story 68. I ask this only to better answer you. Do you live in London? Story 69. I haven't had a drink in a couple of months. I have sake, wine, or another drink every couple of months, but otherwise I don't drink. I drank very heavily in my 20s, but I'm in my 30s now and have been this way for a while. I don't miss it at all. Not the hangovers, the expense, or figuring out how to get home without driving. I'm at the point where I look at alcohol and wonder how it's legal given how many people it drags down compared with other drugs. Story 70. As others have said, everyone is different. I drank a lot in college because it was what we did. I liked it. Hangovers happened but were usually not a big deal for me. After I started full-time work, I focused on learning my job. Drinking, while not frowned upon, rarely came up. I didn't miss it. These days, as I approach retirement, I have maybe one drink a week usually. Wine at a weekly dinner with my mom and sister. Getting loopy is strictly reserved for nights when insomnia hits and I have something important the next day. Luckily, I can now get mildly loopy on 2 strong drinks, preferably a double bourbon. On the plus side, this means that really good and expensive bourbon is much more economical now. I can make a bottle last 2 years or more. Story 71. I don't really enjoy drinking. I don't like the taste, feeling buzzed, feeling out of control, or having a headache and feeling like shit the next day. Maybe once in 50 times I drink I'm glad I did it. The other 49 times I either regret it or feel meh. Most of the time I drink because it's the thing to do, not because I actually want to. Story 72. I used to drink quite often, but now I rarely drink. Stopped being enjoyable, to be honest. I will have a couple of drinks with certain people or at certain events, but my day-to-day life and drinking just do not really mix. Story 73. It's funny how genes and trauma work. I have a biological brother, only 18 months younger than me. We grew up in the same house with the same parents, friends, schools, and teachers, and we share the same DNA. He has been an alcoholic since he was 14, and I have never enjoyed alcohol. I never drank in college, and now I will have a glass of wine or a cocktail at a social event once or twice a year because it is expected, but I would much rather have a soda. He has been homeless for more than a decade and has no contact with his only child because alcohol has more appeal to him than anything else. We started out from the same template. There is no telling who it will affect and who it will spare. Story 74. It stopped being worth it. Being a bit buzzed is fun when I am hanging out with friends. I love it and am tempted to keep drinking to prolong it. But the moment the night ends and I get home, I hate it. Even when I am not very drunk, I just sit there miserable, wishing I were sober. These days, even when I am with friends, I remember how much I hate that feeling at the end of the night, so I limit myself to a beer or two if I drink at all. Story 75. I occasionally drank socially, for example, one drink once a week or once every 2 weeks, but Zoloft made me feel horrible even after a small amount. I did not mean a hangover. I felt heavy-headed, my neck hurt, and my heart raced. You are not supposed to drink alcohol while taking Zoloft. There was a short period when I was off Zoloft and had a couple of drinks. It was the only time drinking ever felt good to me. So is that an accidental life hack? Story 76. I am not an alcoholic. I do think there is a chemical correlation between needing to drink and wanting to drink. As I get older, I am less interested in drinking at all. Story 77. I mostly drink when there is an open bar and I do not have to pay for it. Drinking gets expensive otherwise. Story 78. It depends on why you drink. Is it casual drinking with friends? Or do you find yourself drinking for no reason? Story 79. I have since quit drinking, but I never wanted to do the same thing every day. I would not want to eat the same meal at the same restaurant every day. Drinking was supposed to be fun, and if it becomes repetitive and routine, it feels like a job, a responsibility, or a rut. Story 80. As I have gotten older, drinking makes me feel terrible the next morning after only a couple of drinks. Story 81. Mainly, I do not want to. I enjoy a few beers now and then, and sometimes have a few too many, but most days I do not because I have things to do. Story 82. Being in control of yourself is amazing. It is surprising how many people do not feel that. Story 83. I drink beer and mixed drinks when I go out. I enjoy getting tipsy. The next day, I just do not crave it. To me, it is like asking if I have to have orange juice every day. Why would I? Tastes good. But so do many other things. Story 84. Social drinkers are not alcoholics, so it does not come up. No magic involved. I usually have only one if I drink at all. But do not leave your fucking donuts unguarded. Laughing out loud. Story 85. I have a beer about once a month or a glass of wine. I really like the taste for the first half of the glass and half the time forget to drink the rest. Story 86. I only drink when invited to bars, and when I do, my intention is to get drunk. Outside of those days, I do not drink any alcohol. It is not something I enjoy very much. Story 87. I can have one drink and not want more, but with sugary food I have no control. You might think I am joking, but I am not. Cannot eat it at all. Story 88. As I get older, the hangovers get worse. My drinking has dropped off precipitously as a result. Story 89. I no longer drink because it never appealed to me. When I was a social drinker, I remember friends being so excited for their Friday after-work drinks to take the edge off. I never understood what edge they were trying to take off. I guess that explains it. I never wanted more than a drink or two, and drinking never made me go overboard because I have no edges. Also, every drug I have tried, including alcohol, makes me uncomfortably aroused, and I do not need that in my life. Story 90. I drink a lot, but I do not need to. I regularly go days without drinking. If I do not want to drink, I do not. Once I have a drink, I often want more, but as I have aged, I can say no. Some people will say that makes me an alcoholic, which may be fair. I know I drink too much, but my life is not affected. I know when to stop, and I never drive after drinking. I expect someone will still call me an alcoholic, but I accept that. Story 91. I enjoy the taste of beer, but I do not enjoy being drunk. Being tipsy is okay, but being drunk is not enjoyable for me. Getting hungover is also unpleasant. Therefore, I am typically limited to at most 5 or 6 beers before I start to feel physically unwell and would rather not drink at all. Story 92. I do not understand how some people can have just a few drinks. 3 drinks are enough to make me stop caring about the consequences, and I keep drinking every hour until I cannot drink anymore. By the way, that is exactly what happened the last time I tried to have only a few drinks. I had been in recovery for quite a while and thought something had changed. Story 93. I somewhat like some of the effects, but I dislike the others, mainly because they make me tired. It is just not that fun. Story 94. I was talking to a friend who is in recovery and has been sober for 2 years. He said, I do not know how you do it. You drink one day and then just do not the next. I do not even think about it. If I decide to drink, I drink. If I decide not to, I do not. My friend said that if he drank, he could not stop, to the point of drinking a bottle of vodka at work every day. My husband and I can keep the same seltzers, beers, or other drinks in the house for months without touching them because we simply do not feel like drinking. Story 95. I do not crave it. I hate feeling terrible the next day. Story 96. I think addiction is hardwired in the brain. This may be why people become addicted to a particular vice. For some it is alcohol, for others smoking or illegal drugs. I can take or leave alcohol, but I love smoking cigarettes and everything about it. I have been without a cigarette for 2 years, and not a moment goes by that I do not want one. Story 97. The thing is, you can want to do it every day, meaning you may feel a temporary urge to have a drink without intending to get drunk. The feeling is temporary and passes without consuming anything. You can think and feel things, but it is about what you do with those thoughts and feelings. Story 98. I am neutral about it. I like beer and whiskey because I enjoy the experience of consuming them. Beer is like grown-up soda. Whiskey is like an aperitif or a sort of dessert for me. I do not love being intoxicated. A little buzz from a couple of drinks is fun, but I find being drunk a rather unpleasant experience. Near the legal limit for driving, I stop enjoying the effect. I have probably had about 3 to 4 drinks a week since my early 20s, and I have never lost control of my intake. It is insignificant to me, and my cravings are simply based on being thirsty and wanting something to drink rather than a mental desire. I feel bad for people with dependence issues and understand that not everyone is like me in that way. I am addicted to nicotine, and I cannot imagine how hard it must be if you feel about alcohol the way I feel about nicotine. Story 99. The character Leo McGarry had a great quote about this in the show The West Wing. It's a wiring issue and not relatable to non-alcoholics. I would advocate trying to stop or getting help. I'm an alcoholic. I don't have one drink. I don't understand people who have one drink. I don't understand people who leave half a glass of wine on the table. I don't understand people who say they've had enough. How can you have enough of feeling like this? How can you not want to feel like this longer? My brain works differently. Story 100. Alcohol generally does not make me feel good. I drink socially and enjoy certain drinks, but they are not tasty or enjoyable enough for me to drink every day. Story 101. I think about harm to my liver and brain. I like them. They have been very good to me. Story 102. I do not like the taste or the effects. I would rather have ice water and remain sober. My social drinking is mainly to keep up appearances. Story 103. My stomach always feels horrible the next day, like bubble guts. It's just not worth it. Story 104. Some days I want pizza, other days tacos or a salad. Sometimes I want a beer, a glass of wine, or just water. I enjoy a drink or two when I have one, but I never have a strong urge to drink otherwise. Story 105. For me, it has been a lifetime of watching friends and a few relatives succumb to alcohol addiction or abuse, starting in high school in the 1970s and continuing to the present. I cannot imagine myself becoming unable to function, stumbling, slurring words, being incoherent, or having cognitive impairment. There is no way I would let that happen. I do have one drink at celebrations. Usually, I am the designated driver for friends and relatives. As of today, I have had 7 drinks this year. Story 106. I do not know. I just have a couple of beers or a couple of glasses of wine. I never drink more than 2, and then I go on with my life. Sometimes I grab a beer on a Friday or when I am eating a good steak, but I do not crave it every day. Story 107. It doesn't taste good, and I prefer to consume only pleasant things. I act like a baby when I'm hungover. Story 108. I might more easily become addicted to drinking if I were not so miserable the next day. Whatever alcohol does for me in the moment is not worth the price I will have to pay in the morning. Story 109. I only drink as a social lubricant. It makes me feel depressed and awful the next day if I do it alone. However, there are other drugs I could see myself using every day or have used every day. Benzodiazepines, ketamine, cannabis, and cocaine. Alcohol just does not agree with my brain or body. Story 110. I don't think I have an addictive personality. I keep alcohol more as a novelty and am careful not to associate drinking with de-stressing. I never want to feel like, "Gah, I need a drink." I try to deal with my stress on its own and don't use alcohol as a solution. I also hate hangovers. Story 111. I am a social drinker who has had 2 long-term relationships with people who drank daily and binged often. I have thought about this a lot. 1. I get tired shortly after I get a buzz. 2. I get nausea if I really get drunk. 3. I have never blacked out. I think people with alcohol dependence black out often enough to lose their 1-minute short-term memory. 4. I have never wanted to get so drunk that I black out. Why do some drinkers try to get so drunk that they black out? Story 112. I do not know. I like orange juice, but I do not have it every day. That is a legitimate answer, not a troll. Story 113. Do you socialize every day? If we go to happy hour, I limit myself to one drink. It's not a hard rule to follow if you do it consistently. Don't socialize every day, man. Story 114. I have never needed or wanted alcohol on a daily basis. Laughing out loud. To me, drinking alcohol is rare. I prefer to drink something to quench my thirst, to be honest. Alcoholic drinks do not quench thirst. Story 115. I do not know. It is hard to describe because I do not feel a need to drink. Story 116. I can think of a couple of reasons I drink so little. First, I do not enjoy the effects of alcohol, so when I feel it, I immediately lose interest. Second, I am very particular about alcohol. For example, I only really like one tequila and will go without if I cannot find it. The same is true for whiskey, although I like a few varieties. Beer and wine are similar. Only a few varieties are palatable to me. That said, I really enjoy and savor the small amount of alcohol I do drink. Story 117. I just don't enjoy the effects of alcohol enough to want to do it every day. Everyone is wired differently. Story 118. Because I am in my 50s, alcohol hits harder. Anything more than 2 drinks knocks me out. Nothing is worth dealing with that except an occasional happy hour for work or a special occasion. Story 119. It's not something I crave regularly. Having a drink or two with friends is nice, but I don't need alcohol to enjoy myself. Having more than a few drinks makes me sick and instantly ruins any fun. Story 120. I am on my 3rd consecutive day of attending alcohol-based outings, and I feel disgusting. I definitely do not want to continue this behavior. Story 121. I want to avoid the consequences of being an alcoholic more than I want to drink regularly. Weed also helps. Story 122. For me, it is risk versus reward. Sure, I will enjoy the drink in the moment, but I also know I do not have a high tolerance and do not want to deal with a hangover or headache the next day. 1 to 2 drinks is my maximum in any setting. Additionally, I dislike not being in control of my mental faculties. I cannot take care of my family or be of any use in a crisis if I am drunk. Story 123. Alcohol does not make me feel better and serves little purpose, so I prefer to drink only a few drinks 1 to 2 times per week. Story 124. I am a heavy drinker on the weekends when I am with friends. When we hang out or party, we are constantly taking shots or playing drinking games. We are all in our 30s and 40s, laughing out loud. On days when I stay home, I do not really have any desire to drink. I do not have withdrawal symptoms. I just want to play video games and watch television. I enjoy drinking with friends, but the hangovers are getting worse as I get older, and I do not see any point in drinking by myself. Story 125. It totally depends on my situation. Whenever I have a very stressful job, it is easy to want to drink every night. It almost feels like a need and reduces my anxiety. If my life is not that stressful, I only want to drink socially and am completely okay never drinking again. I do not feel the urge is something I can necessarily control. Story 126. It is fun sometimes but not a necessity. The same goes for a steak dinner. Sure, it can hit the spot, but it would get old very quickly if it were a nightly occurrence. Story 127. I usually remind myself how I will feel the next morning. I have never had any major hangovers, but I have experienced extremely annoying and persistent headaches that last the entire day. That is enough to remind me to stop drinking and switch to water. Story 128. We have a drink infrequently, meaning it never gets attached to anything. It is not a tool and has no purpose. If you have a drink after work every day, it becomes automatic and you notice something is missing if it is not there. If you drink every weekend, it quickly becomes the default. If you drink to achieve a feeling or because you expect something to happen, alcohol will always become your vehicle to get there. Examples: I'll have a drink to feel relaxed. I'll have a drink so I'm not as insecure in social situations. I'll have a drink because I had a bad day. If I only have one beer, I won't get that buzzed feeling. It becomes attached to emotions and suddenly has a purpose. You do not drink for the taste of the drink, but because of what you want it to do for you. In German, there is a word for this, Wirkungstrinker, which roughly means effect drinker. Story 129. I drink only at parties because I think drinking will make me fat, so I make the sacrifice only a few times. Story 130. I don't think being drunk is that great, and I don't get the euphoria that alcoholics do. Story 131. Over time, hangovers become severe and serious health issues can emerge. Story 132. I just do not care about being drunk or high. I like my friends, and I enjoy being in control of myself, watching my friends be funny, and driving. I will have a drink or two when I go out because some drinks taste good. Most do not, and being a little loose feels nice, but I do not see the point in anything more. I have plenty of fun sober. Story 133. Drinking stopped being fun when I graduated from college. Laughing out loud. For me, my reasons are, I have emetophobia. I avoid things that will make me nauseous at all costs. It saves me money. It is awful for your health, and I do not want it to impact my autoimmune disease. I have a very low tolerance these days, so it does not take much for it to make me feel ill. It makes my head and face feel hot, buzzy, and tingly, and it gives me major anxiety. Drunk people annoy the hell out of me. My mother is a major source, so I do not put myself in those settings very often. Overall, I just do not really enjoy feeling a lack of bodily control. Same reason I have never used drugs, aside from edible gummies, which I also did not like, laughing very hard. That said, I will have a drink here and there a few times a year, but usually not enough to even get me buzzed. Story 134. I became more addicted to cycling than to alcohol. I quit drinking to boost my performance. Story 135. I drink so infrequently that the feeling is perpetually unfamiliar and uncomfortable. Story 136. Drinking blurs my thinking, makes me very sleepy, and my sleep is worse the next day. I know it is bad for my health. If I do not have enough energy to go out, or if I feel I need a lot of rest before tomorrow, it is not worth drinking. Story 137. Getting drunk is not a pleasant experience. Things are blurry. I feel dizzy and risk vomiting. I also feel anxious that I am talking too loudly, being obnoxious, or might say something that upsets someone. None of that is fun. I drink until I feel better, then switch to water or soda. The feeling typically lasts the rest of the evening, and I am fine. Story 138. I may have been an alcoholic. Throwing up from drinking too much was not uncommon. I drove drunk once, and for a while I did shots at home on my lunch break because I hated my job. Working less and making physical changes to feel more at home in my body helped me improve. Over time I stopped liking how alcohol made me feel, and after a head injury required me to avoid drinking for a while, I went more than a month without alcohol. Now I mostly drink only when eating out, at concerts, or similar events. I do not feel like I need alcohol the way I used to. The same is true around friends. I am lucky to have 3 different friend groups who are sober from alcohol. We often use edible cannabis products instead, which feel better and have fewer negative effects. Story 139. It usually causes sharp temporomandibular joint pain, and the likelihood increases with each drink I have. Story 140. I only drink sporadically. The thought of getting intoxicated on a daily basis disgusts me. I do not enjoy being impaired so much that I crave it the day after drinking. Consuming alcohol makes me feel guilty for harming my body and wasting money. It also disrupts my everyday productivity. Generally, I do not have an inner feeling that says, it would feel good to be wasted right now. I have a hard time picturing being wasted as a positive experience. I do struggle with wanting to escape everyday life and with my mental health, but I have little or no substitute for that. The idea of an alcoholic buzz does not appear in my mental imagery as something that would relieve the need to escape. I recognize these are my thoughts, feelings, and mental blocks, and I understand that people with alcohol dependence do not necessarily share all of these blocks or may be able to override them. Story 141. When I was overweight, it took many drinks to feel intoxicated. Putting in that much effort made drinking unappealing. I also do not like the taste of liquor unless it is sake, soju, gin, or certain whiskeys. Having to drink so much felt like a chore, so I stopped caring. After losing a large amount of weight and reaching 150 pounds at 5 feet 9 inches, I needed much less alcohol to become intoxicated. When I get drunk, I become very hot and feel unwell, which again makes drinking unappealing. The only drug I find appealing is marijuana. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.